Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. Today is Monday, February 2nd. Um, MS Now has this guy Velshi, and CNN has this guy Smear Kanish. And I think they're both maybe Muslim, I'm not sure. Almost like a cartoon character, this guy. But they're probably the most journalistic people on CNN and MSNBC. That's not a hard thing to achieve, but it's weekend reporting when nobody's watching. And I watched the end of this thing, and I'm glad they put the whole thing up here. So this is for every Trumper who thinks what Trump is doing isn't going to come back to bite them in the ass, right? It's just about liberals and it's just about illegals. Just apply everything you're about to see to what happens when the Democrats or private companies use these technologies against you, right?
Making it America's highest funded law enforcement agency with $85 billion to spend. And that kind of money buys a lot of tools, including some state-of-the-art technology that is powering the president's mass deportation crackdown. ICE is making use of surveillance tech ranging from biometric trackers to cell phone location, databases, spyware, and drones, all while the administration loosens restrictions on how it uses some of these technologies. According to new reporting from the Washington Post, the Department of Homeland Security revealed in an annual report on Wednesday that the agency, quote, has significantly expanded.
So again, the Washington Post sucks and MSN now sucks, but this is real. This is happening because when has fucking the MS Now and Washington Post covered the deep state, right? Like if this was Biden doing it, they wouldn't be covering it. More than likely. Maybe this guy would, probably not though. Because they don't cover shit like that. So when the Democrats were doing this, they wouldn't have said anything. And this idea of the deep state, they want to poo-poo. But anybody who saw Enemy of the State and there was a movie, a prequel to that. Not a prequel, it was the original movie called The Conversation. And it's about, them spying. We know how much spying goes on. And we've all learned to just live with it, right? But anything that's done in this area, when the Democrats take over, they have these same options, and private companies, because this is the way they can spy on you now.
The operational scope for its use of facial recognition, AI, and other advanced technologies. In a statement to the Post, DHS said what ICE is doing is, quote, no different than other law enforcement agencies, but adding, quote, we are not going to divulge law enforcement sensitive methods.
So it means they're all doing it, right? Are you comfortable with that? The MSA and the CIA and FBI doing this stuff? You guys trust the federal government, do you? You Trumpers, right? Well, now that Trump's in charge and that fucking piece of shit, Kash Patel, but before, it's turned over to Biden, then we'll care about it again, or turned over to the Democrats.
Big Brother really is watching. I want to look at some of the powerful tools in ICE's arsenal. Over the past year, ICE has started using facial recognition technology. You may have seen videos and pictures of this. If you've seen any of the ICE arrests, you've seen pictures like this. Officers holding up a phone to a person's face while conducting immigration enforcement. What you're seeing is the real-time use of a new app called Mobile Fortify. The app
Mobile Fortify
enables ICE to essentially scan a person's face and fingerprints.
Unicorn.
Those scans are then compared against a database containing individuals' immigration status and other biographical information. So if an officer scans the face of someone who's undocumented, the app should tell them. Here's how it works. An ICE agent uses a phone camera to record an image of a face. The software then detects the face in the image. It then extracts key facial features, converting the information to a digital profile. The profile is then checked against a database of faces, and once the comparison is complete, the system reports a possible match. This is all done in a fraction of a second. According to the Washington Post, in the past, ICE and other federal agencies have been cautious about using facial recognition technology, largely because of concerns about accuracy, especially when identifying people of color. This is actually a real problem. Studies show that facial recognition technology is, in fact, often inaccurate when it comes to people of color. A 2018 study titled Gender Shades, published by MIT Media Lab, found error rates of just 0.8% for light-skinned men, compared to 34.7% for darker-skinned women. A federal study conducted in 2019 supported these conclusions, finding that facial recognition works best on middle-aged white men.
Well, there's a twist.
In a statement to the Post, DHS says, quote, Mobile Fortify is a lawful law enforcement tool developed under the Trump administration to support accurate identity and immigration.
Okay, so you understand that Trump campaigned against the deep state and spy state, right? All this kind of stuff that he was supposed to rein these things in. Like most of the people who are right-wing Trumpers, Republicans, any kind of, any of these things are, against spying. And I think most Americans are by this point, but, particular people consider themselves patriots, right? Right-wing constitutional people. They don't like this, right? You don't like this. A lot of people voted for Trump was thinking they could trust Trump with this. Same thing with Obama. All the people on the left, Obama said Muslim, whatever he said. He talked in like a Muslim accent because he grew up partially in Indonesia and he was, and all that stuff. And he was being accused by the right of being a Muslim. But he was one of the worst in terms of whistleblowers and more wars, everything he did with Libya. And the left-wing people were like, oh, Obama's got this, thinking that he would be more of a pacifist. But he was one of the most aggressive presidents. Like he started wars with Syria and Libya and did, stuff in Egypt. And, he was all over the place during this time. And he was droning more kids, droning people. He droned more than any other person before him. There were all these drone strikes. And so Obama was pretending he won 2 Nobel Peace Prizes, but he wasn't a peace president. And the left didn't even want to look into him. They just accepted him, right? They trusted him. And that's, always a big mistake. You don't never trust a politician. You always have to research into them. And oftentimes you think that they're one way about an essential thing you believe in, like in this case, the spy state. But Trump has increased spying more than anybody, and he's using these things. You can say, well, it's on illegals and liberals. Yeah, but, it's going to be used on you too, and it is being used on you too, right? So Trump will use it on anybody that goes up against him, but what happens when he's gone? Like, you always have to look at everything that Trump is doing now can now be done on you when you're targeted again, you homegrown terrorist, you fucking extreme right-wing people, you Trump MAGA people, when you're targeted again, and, the next 3 years or the next 2 years when the midterms happen after that, and there's a Democratic president in there, this stuff's going to be turned on you. So this is why you fight against it. But you're too the Trumpers are too stupid to realize this. They just don't want to see it.
Status verification during enforcement operations. It operates with a deliberately high matching threshold and queries only limited CBP.
Okay, let's go to this. This is the thing I saw here.
And when a suspect's device connects to it, the officer...
Here, let's go back here.
Site simulators. They're known as...
Let's go back here.
Police officers have the ability to track a phone's location in real time through cell site simulators. They're known as stingrays. Now, a stingray tricks a phone into thinking it's a normal cell tower, and when a suspect's device connects to it, the officers can trace its location. In law enforcement operations, stingrays are used in two main ways. If officers already know a phone's number, they can use the simulator to track it down, or they can scan all the cell phones in the area. As TechCrunch, the tech news platform, notes, some cell site simulators can intercept regular calls, text messages, and internet traffic, which means that anyone whose phone is in the vicinity of a stingray could connect to it and feed the government information.
So you're comfortable with this? Look at this thing.
Without even knowing. Take a look at this image. This is generated by the Washington Post. In order to be usable, a cell phone must connect to a cell tower. Your phone automatically connects to the strongest signal that's available. In this image, you and your phone are down at the bottom left, trying to connect to the tower on the right. The stingray, which is mounted on the van, mimics a real cell tower, causing your phone to connect to it instead of the legitimate phone company tower. ICE agents have to obtain a search warrant from a judge, by the way, before deploying a sting.
Okay, so let's go back and look at this thing. So you comfortable with this if you're in an ICE area? And you can say I'm not doing anything wrong or whatever it is, but nobody wants their information being observed by the government. They can find any little thing that they can turn against you, right? So if you're in an area where they have one of these, they are they're getting your cell phone data, and they're taking it. They're fucking taking it all, and they're storing it away. Now with the AI technology and these massive data centers, they're taking every little bit of information, which they always do. They don't. Information is gold. It's like valuable. It's like platinum, right? It's like diamonds. I mean, it's information is one of the highest sought after things, and when they get it, they take it all, right? And you're in databases, and they're just adding to what they know about you, and everything they do with ICE is a distraction. All this stuff that they're doing with immigration, it's an excuse to do all this other stuff. They're going to go to martial law, and they're going to push for all these things. So if you're texting, something, whatever, like just a joke to somebody that might be considered offensive, or some, whatever it might be that you're saying to your friends, and they have one of these towers, they're getting all that shit. I mean, they get one of these trucks, which they're rolling out, and you start seeing these trucks everywhere, and they'll just be collecting data. They're driving through, collecting data. Everyone's cell phones is using them, and so nobody should feel comfortable with this. I mean, we all know it's being done anyway, so people are like, fuck it, what can I do? But it's, this is where Trump isn't your friend, right? He's creating things that are being used against you now and will be used against you in the future.
Company tower. ICE agents have to obtain a search warrant from a judge, by the way, before deploying a Stingray. But according to the Washington Post, quote, ICE guidelines name several broad emergency exceptions, such as the need to protect human life.
Here they are right here. Here's the trucks, right? So they,
or avert serious injury, being in hot pursuit of a fleeing felon, or to prevent the escape of a suspect or convicted felon from justice.
So they can always say they have that, right? These are any of these things, they can just say, yeah, we have one of these things. And then they can go anywhere and record everything.
I'm not finished. Then there are the phone location databases. In 2018, the Supreme Court ruled in Carpenter v. United States that cell phone location data reveals so much about a person's life that authorities need a warrant to get it from phone companies. But federal agencies found a way to circumvent that ruling by buying the data from commercial brokers. Commercial brokers collect location data from weather apps, from mobile games, and other software. These are apps software in which users technically consent to tracking, often without realizing what that consent actually means. According to the Wall Street Journal, the first Trump administration used these databases for immigration enforcement, but in January of 2024, ICE said it had stopped the practice until September of last year, when ICE quietly purchased a subscription to one such database, once again putting mass surveillance back on the table. That brings us to yet another tool at their disposal, digital forensics. A seized device, your phone for instance, is plugged into specialized hardware. The hardware allows ICE to hack into locked phones and computers, bypassing privacy protections to give law enforcement access to multimedia, to password, communications, locations, deleted...
Right, so you get the fucking idea here, right? And again, this is not just the government. Like, there's private companies who are going to have all this kind of stuff, right? Your workplace, they're just going to plug your phone in. They confiscate your phones, just saying, oh, you can't bring your phone into this meeting. And they take your phone and they just plug it in, and you get all the fucking information that you have on there. Like, this can be done by everybody who has access to these technologies. We know that there's a lot of money going into surveillance. It's a huge part. I've kind of joked before, half joking, but not, that, they're setting us up for an alien invasion, or aliens are running the planet, and they want to get as much data as they can. It's like they're studying us like we would study some animal, trying to figure out what make humans tick and get as much information about all that stuff as possible. I mean, if it isn't that, it's like the same thing. They're trying to, the people who are in the controlling aspect, they have different total orientation to life, and they're trying to understand the muggles, right? And so this is everything that they're, all that stuff makes sense.
Files and even encrypted chats. Most digital forensic tools cannot be used remotely. ICE would actually have to have physical possession of your device. Now, traditionally, these invasive tools were limited to investigations into online child exploitation, human trafficking, financial crimes, and other serious international crimes. But according to the Washington Post, top Trump officials have ordered these investigative resources to be shifted toward Trump's deportation drive. And finally, drones are becoming increasingly part of the field operations.
Yeah, where would we be without drones?
Involving ICE and Border Patrol officers, providing real-time video back to a base. At the border, drones have been long used to detect migrants. But the Washington Post says ICE has been using small drones to monitor protests over the past year. In the fall, ICE signed a $514,000 contract to purchase new drones, signaling they may play a larger role going forward. All right, that's a lot. So I'm joined.
Okay, so there it is, right? And I mean, again, people are like, well, Washington Post and MS Now suck. We all know these things are true. Like, there's no doubt about it. And like I said before, Trump sucks so bad now that these things have become real news again, because they don't have to make shit up about Trump like they used to, because he's actually doing all the things that they said he would, or that they hoped he would, or a combination of both. Okay, look at this guy with the V. Fuck's going on, bro? He's got a big V. All right, so there's that. All right, so I kind of want to put this. I don't know if I need to put it on my journey. So I guess I can put this in the journey series. So I posted this video, which I'll show you in a moment. Well, I guess I'll put the photo up here. So there was a video that's from 2000. I don't know when it was originally made. It was on VHS. My family and I used to watch it. It was like poor quality. They cleaned it up digitally. It's much better now. But it's the first master of the Sagemark systemology. Very little is known about him. It's like almost like a homemade movie. It's a totally amateur, amateur in India. And so they it's only as good as it could be. So, but it's kind of interesting for us who we can get over the lack of quality and lack of production values, and some of it. But I posted this on my Gratefullness meditation channel, and I used some images from the movie. I was just scrolling through it, and one of them said this. They noticed in this image, the guy in the image is supposed to be white. The guy behind the desk, he's what they call a British Raj, and I'm trying to find. Oh, here I got it up here. I guess. Here it is. And so the person says at the 149 mark in my video, not the video that's there. It's like an hour in the other video. At the 149 mark of this video, there's some residue of the UK flag the way it used to be. The current flag has been Mandela affected so that St. Patrick's Cross diagonal red is now misaligned on each side of the St. George's Cross horizontal and vertical red. This video contains the pre-shift version. It's very unusual for the residue to remain outside of artistic creations or renderings. And so this is one of those Mandela effects. And I don't really know anything about the frickin' British flag and any of these things. And so I looked it up here. Let's go to I'll switch over here. So here's what AI said about it. The old British flag, the Union Jack, centers on people misremembering. Now, some of these misrememberings is those of us who grew up with it. Fruit of the Loom had a cornucopia on it, and now it doesn't. And people are like, holy shit, where'd the cornucopia go? And everyone's like, oh, you're misremembering. Like, there's things like that. Some of the things I remember a certain way. My wife has brought these things up. I had my own kind of Mandela effect. I've talked about that when I moved back from India, where there was this road that was my wife's name that I was going down it, and I ended up on the opposite side of town than I was supposed to be at. And it was kind of a weird thing. I've talked about that in some of the Journey series. The design, particularly the symmetry of the white diagonal stripes, may falsely recall the red diagonal lines being centered perfectly within the white lines, whereas the actual design has the white stripes offset to represent Scotland and Ireland property. Okay, so I guess here's what they're talking about here, right? That these lines, see how these are offset, right? And so people remember them being perfectly symmetrical. And there's a different part of this here that, I'll show you the flag that is represented in this video. This is back when India was, part of this thing. So But what they're saying here is, see how this offset here? This is, see, there's more white here on this side and this side and this side. And so that's, they don't, so people are misremembering this, but it's captured right here. And so they got this in India. So they would have had these flags in India. This was done, I think, in 1980, probably 1990, 90s, early 2000s. I'm not sure when the video came out originally. I could look to see if it might even say it here in the description box. So this is supposed to be Lology, the first master. This is supposed to be a white British officer. Lology worked in a courtroom. And here's the flag. You can see it's perfectly symmetrical. This is the British office that he's in. And so, and then see how it's thicker here in the middle? This thing is a little bit different here as well. So, so much for misremembering. I thought that was interesting. This thing, I had no idea. Like, this person just mentioned it. So there's that. This video, again, it's very immature. People are interested in, and it almost needs a lot of explanation in terms of the stories. Most of us watching this already we're familiar with Lology's life. It's his birthday's on February 2nd. This video's, today's February 2nd. I'm going to put this up tomorrow night on the 3rd. And there'll be no video on Wednesday. And, I'll post something on my other channels on Wednesday. Apocalypse Now and Gratefullness Meditation. I'm putting stuff up every day about the gathering. But anyways, I thought that was kind of interesting side little thing to this. But you can clearly see the symmetrical nature of this flag here. So I tried to find out when this video was published. And I know that I saw it before the year 2000. Like, I saw it in the 90s. So it was sometime in the 90s. I started in 1993. And it was published after that. Like, it, was filmed. In terms of it being filmed, it was definitely filmed in the 1990s. And so they purchased these flags somewhere in India that had some of these old flag relics, and they have the symmetrical lines and sort of that thing in the middle that's a little bit thicker. I don't know. So again, this is all new to me, and I thought I'd just pass that on. And let's move on to the other stuff here. Okay, to add to this, we've had this this thing's called a hydrant. I called it a pump before, which is wrong. The pump is the thing that pumps the water into the hydrant. People might call this a faucet, but in terms of this particular thing, it's called a hydrant. And this one just fucking started gushing water. I said that we had a water problem when the snow and the freezing. Let me play this video clip here, and then I'll talk about it on the other side. Okay, so what they call this a hydrant wasn't working because we had the water diverted to our greenhouse. So something happened. These things, we had one do this before. I mean, these are old. They're probably 50 years old. And you can see the water's just flowing. So I've just turned the water on for a brief period of time. We got like a little creek starting here going into this area. They're off all night, or there'd be a lot more water here. So it's kind of really been a bummer. The guy's coming in 2 days. Today's Monday. It's coming on Wednesday. Hopefully they can cap this off. We don't even need this thing here because it wasn't even working before. Cap it off underground, and so hopefully that'll be done. So that's what's going on with us here. Okay, so just to add to this, it was just ill-timed. Like, I'm not sure if this thing, like I said, these things are 50 years old. We had one that went before, and the one that they replaced it with is like heavy duty. It's way better. It's probably more modern. I mean, they probably didn't have these. This is probably the best thing they had 50 years ago, and it's worth, 30, 40, 50 years, whatever they put it in. There's another hydrant about 20 feet over to the left. I don't know why they put two out in the pasture. And we extended one closer to the barn and put one in the greenhouse. And this one they diverted water from it. But now water is coming out of it. And I don't know, the guy's going to come here and we'll find out about all that stuff. But the net fucking story here is it got so much worse yesterday. and the water pressure went down. So we were at risk of draining our fucking well. It gets replenished, these wells, but whatever. Like, it's not a great thing. And I think it's clogging up the filters to boot. So our water pressure is down, and we have been turning off the pump pretty much most of the day and all of the night. And we turn it on for a little bit and then turn it back off. And so we got that to deal with. It's interesting that we're doing this during what is basically a spiritual gathering here. Years ago, there was this guy that came to our house, and he came from Washington, D.C., and he grew up in India, and he liked the farm, and he used to bring different people down. These were all Indians who grew up in rural area in India because they liked coming out to the farm, and they all lived in urban places in America. And he said that they had electricity for 2 hours every night between like 2 and 4 in the morning. And so the electricity would go on, everyone would wake up, and they had these bore wells where there would be like a cistern on top of the roof of the house. And, there's like these block houses, these like sort of rectangular houses with a flat roof, and they would have a big cistern, and they'd turn the water pump on and fill the cistern and do everything they needed to do when they had electricity, and then go back to sleep, right? People have lived like that. I mean, electricity that we have, constant electricity, constant internet. When we get disruption in service, we're like, what the fuck? Trains that run on time, planes that run on time, like all these things. People don't live like that. Like, you go to these places, the train comes in 2 hours late. I mean, nothing is like, they live in a completely different level of efficiency and competence. And we're going to experience that. It's good to have something like this because it hasn't been really that bad. I mean, it's more effort, certainly. It's nice to have running water. I mean, it's just a gift to have running water in your house. And running hot water is like an amazing thing, and we don't appreciate it. We just take it for granted. Anyways, I just want to add that stuff here. Let's get on to the other things. Okay, so Don Lemons was being celebrated. He didn't do anything at the Grammys, as far as I can tell. I'm not feeling it today anyway, but I got a few little updates to do with him. He went after the Epstein files. And I don't know if there's going to be anything to talk about in terms of TPUSK, probably. Right now, there's nothing. So I don't know if Candace is going to drop some new bullshit thing tonight. And I'm hoping not. And so I did want to look at Erica Kirk's channel. I'll go into do that maybe tomorrow. She has her own YouTube channel, and I don't know if she's been posting anything over there. I'm sure I'd be notified by my viewers here if there was that. But let's go before we go to Don Lemons, let's just go around the mainstream media and see what they're saying about Epstein files, which is a fading story. There are some videos on it, but there's not that many, and it's not popping, right? It's not the big story.
So let's go to the Epstein files. Friday's release of millions of pages related to Jeffrey Epstein provided a closer look at his connection to world elites from Hollywood to Washington, Wall Street to Buckingham Palace and beyond, including many high-profile men who publicly claimed to be disgusted with the convicted sex offender and his close associate and fixer, Ghislaine Maxwell. Let's go through just some of the revelations.
President Trump is mentioned more than 1,000 times in the newly released documents, reflecting a long-standing social and business connection between the two men. Previous documents...
Well, where are you? See, the thing about this is, and I showed you this in my last video, I knew this in 2015. I covered this, just from that one quote. That one quote was undeniable that Trump and Jeffrey Epstein were associated. And Trump has been creepy about women and, all over the place since then. That's all you need to know. And, whatever dumb fuck Trumpers are willing to do to deny reality, that's whatever their thing is, right? But in terms of this thing I called the show, they are, there's videos and pictures of them together, lots of them, and the weird birthday message. I don't think Trump's going to get rung up by this thing, even though he's done everything again to push back against it. He basically gave amnesty to Ghislaine Maxwell. He went, only one step away from just releasing her altogether and giving her a fucking pardon, right? Like, that's how bad that is. And many of the girls who, these victims are saying that she was worse than Jeffrey. Like, she was much worse and, threatened their lives and was a horrible person. She like, groomed some of them and, did things with them sexually to prepare them for them servicing. Like, she trained these girls, right? I mean, most of the girls think that have to deal with her think she's worse. So, Trump is undeniably a creep, and not just with this, with everything. Cheats on his wives, bangs porn stars. He's a scumbag. Admits to going into dressing rooms with these young girls and just it's totally, that's a form of sexual abuse in itself. So, and I think he's going to walk away from this thing because he's just all over the place doing all kinds of shit everywhere. It's like, you're such a demon, and everyone kind of knows you're a demon except the people that worship you, right? And you just, after a while, nothing sticks, right?
Releases indicated Trump was listed as a passenger on Epstein's jet 8 times between 1993 and 1998. And now, the newly released documents include uncorroborated claims about Donald Trump. The White House, responding to the Miami Herald, referred to a statement on the DOJ website denying any credibility in the accusations against the president. Several other high-profile men are in the documents, including Peter Thiel, who in one of several emails was revealed to write, "That was fun. See you in 3 weeks." The context of the email exchange is unclear.
Bill Gates shows up in an email written by Epstein, where Epstein claims Gates contracted an STD from a, quote, Russian girl and sought antibiotics to hide it from his wife.
A spokesperson for Gates called the claims absurd.
Absurd. They're absurd.
And completely false.
Completely false and absurd.
Contrary to what he said publicly, New York real estate mogul Andrew Farkas co-owned...
They got Farkas? Fucking Farkas. I can't believe they got Farkas.
...a marina with Epstein, located near Epstein's Island. And the two exchanged affectionate and crude emails. The documents reveal Farkas himself also stayed on Epstein's private island. Another revelation? Farkas gave Epstein discounts on dockage and services at the marina, which served as a gateway to what's known as Epstein's so-called Rape Island. Billionaire Richard Branson shows up in the files too.
Fucking Branson.
Hosting Epstein twice and exchanging friendly emails in 2013, joking about Epstein's harem and giving him advice about rehabilitating his image after Epstein's sex offender conviction.
New York Giants co-owner Steve Tisch shows up hundreds of times in this latest tranche of Epstein-related files.
Tisch. They got Tisch.
Mostly in 2013 emails where Epstein is proposing women for Tisch to meet, sending photos and bios.
In one exchange, Tisch asks if a woman he met at Epstein's home is a, quote, working girl.
Boom, Tisch, they got you fucking called to dead to rights.
And Epstein replies, NWVER. Then asks for Tisch's phone number, saying he doesn't like, quote, records of these conversations. Later, Epstein tells Tisch, you did well, and that the woman wants to see a play, but is freaked out about his age.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah, he looks like fucking, he's like in his 80s.
In a statement, Tisch wrote in part that he did not take Epstein up on any of his invitations and never went to his island.
Tisch.
The UK's Prince Andrew is shown in never-before-seen photos on a floor on all fours with an unidentified female, along
Jesus Christ, could you get any worse? This fucking guy.
With more exchanges with Epstein, arranging dinners and offering meetings with women. And another where Andrew...
Look at, they fucked him here with this picture.
...invites Epstein to come here to BP, referring to Buckingham Palace.
BP.
Many men whose names are in the documents had publicly and vehemently distanced themselves from the predator, but who are shown to have had seemingly friendly contact with Epstein. That includes a number of men in Donald Trump's orbit and his administration. Elon Musk had said in 2019 that Epstein tried repeatedly to get me to visit his island. I declined. Yet, according to the newly released emails from 2012,
You got fucked, Elon.
he asked, "Are you coming by helicopter? Probably just Tallulah and me. What day/night will be the wildest party on your island?"
Tallulah.
Musk has denied attending that party, nor ever visiting the island. Trump's Commerce Secretary, Howard Lutnick, in 2025, publicly described Epstein as gross and the greatest blackmailer ever, and that he had resolved years earlier never to be in the same room with him again, suggesting he had cut ties with Epstein. But according to the newly released documents,
World Economic Forum gets tied in here. Look at this fuck.
Lutnick arranged and carried out a private lunch with Epstein and his family on Epstein's private island. And Trump's newly nominated pick for chair of the Federal Reserve appears to have been invited to one of Epstein's social events. We do not know if he attended. One other notable, the director of the newly released documentary Melania, Brett Ratner,
Still, there's a picture. I don't know if she has it here. I was going to show you this. I didn't watch this, so this is well done by Maureen Joe. It covers all these things, so I don't have to, whatever it is. I just think this is going to go away. I think it's going away. I think that's it. I don't know if there's anything more. I think it's just fucking Trump, did a Jimmy Kimmel. Jimmy Kimmel was getting Me Too'd for his man show bullshit and his wearing blackface twice. He dressed up as Oprah Winfrey and Karl Malone. And he did a lot of offensive things on that thing called the Man Show when he used to have, testicles, and then he grew a vagina and became a feminist, and became a liberal feminist, but he wasn't that before. And he was really dead to rights. And I used to talk about how he and Ellen were gatekeepers, Jimmy Kimmel's and Ellen, and Ellen stuck around. So she got ousted. Jimmy Kimmel just went on vacation for 3 months, and all these celebrities guest hosted his show. Like, his show was still running. And he disappeared for like 3 months, and by the time he came back, everyone had forgot about his bullshit. And it seems like Trump's been able to do that with the Charlie Kirk assassination. That letter he wrote to Jeffrey Epstein, that birthday wish, was clearly Trump. And, all the rest of those things. And he just outlasted this fucking thing. I mean, Trump's just like a vermin. He's like a cockroach. He survives all these things. And, he's done so much shit that's worse. It's just been accepted. I mean, he's definitely done politically, but, he's not going down in flames.
appears in the newly released documents, including this photo of Ratner on a couch next to Jeffrey Epstein, with Ratner's arm around an unidentified female, and Epstein sitting shoulder to shoulder with another female, both of their faces obscured.
Multiple media outlets have reached out to Brett Ratner, who apparently you would think, you don't know, but you would think would be kind of on a media tour because of this Melania movie. No comment there.
Boom. Melania's pissed because there's been all this bullshit surrounding her. What's got to be an epic movie because she's so fucking brilliant. And so, worth watching. All right, so that's, let's see what else I have here. This came up here.
It's President Trump tonight, a bombshell. New report exposes a
Is it really a bombshell, though?
secret deal between the Trump family and an Abu Dhabi role known as the
What? So?
Spy Shake.
Oh, the spy shake. The spy shake. She's got very weird facial expressions here. Maybe trying to show she's not AI.
Wall Street Journal reporting, quote, 4 days before Donald Trump's inauguration last year, lieutenants to an Abu Dhabi role secretly signed a deal with the Trump family to purchase a 49% stake in their cryptocurrency venture for $500 million.
Okay, so, this is the thing. All these fucking right-wing morons who are talking about whatever's going on there in Minnesota with Tim Walz and the financial stuff and, these families of, what are they, Somali families double down in on their daycare and all that shit. None of these guys are as good of a scammer as Trump. Even Hunter Biden. Joe Biden said he's the smartest guy in the fucking he knows, you know. So Hunter Biden, according to his inside people that know about the family, he was like the shit one, the bad son, and he was supposed to go out there and double deal and scam, along with Joe Biden's brother, and get financial deals to support the family, using Joe Biden's credibility, whereas Beau Biden was going to be his political replacement and, you know, who they thought was going to be president. And so they had a whole family scam, and they did it for a number of years, selling Joe Biden's access, right? And it's just, you know, a drop in the bucket to what Trump has been able to do. Trump is just doesn't give a shit, and he's dying anyway. Eventually, maybe his kids and his family and his business will be torn up. Like one can only hope, but I doubt it because I don't think there's going to be anything left of anything else by then. But he's a fucking total scumbag and grifter. And if you don't know that by now, God bless you. God bless you. Okay, this is Dana Bash. Bash presses Deputy AG on Trump and Epstein files Don Lemons.
Here with me now is Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche. Thank you so much for joining me this morning.
Blanche!
I want to start with the Epstein files. Elon Musk, who is mentioned in some of these files, wrote, quote, "What matters is not the release of some subset of Epstein files, but rather the prosecution of those who committed heinous crimes with Epstein. When there is at least one arrest, some justice will have been done. If not, this is all performative, nothing but a distraction.
Yeah, but you're on there, bro.
Distraction. Is the Department of Justice considering bringing any additional charges here?"
Well, look, I can't talk about any investigations, but I will say the following, which is that...
Yeah, the answer is no. I almost said something I would have had to edit out.
In July, the Department of Justice said that we had reviewed the files, the quote, Epstein files, and there was nothing in there that allowed us to prosecute anybody. We then released over 3.5 million pieces of paper, which the entire world can look at now.
This is another gay-sounding fucking Republican guy. Like, does this guy not sound gay to you? Is he a little bit effeminate? For these tough guy fucking Republicans, you know, and the tough ones sound, you know, they're those, like, tough gay guys, you know, like, you know, for a party that's supposed to be about Christian values and, you know, heterosexuality, they certainly have a lot of gay-sounding dudes. Like, it's a TPUS gay. Look at this guy, right? Look at this.
And see if we got it wrong. And so it's not performative, and I respectfully disagree with that statement. We were ordered to do so by Congress and then by the President of the United States, and that's what we did. And let me, you know, I said it on Friday. This Justice Department...
Say it on Friday? I said on Friday? Friday, I said it on Friday? Fuck, what's wrong, bro?
FBI, DHS...
FBI, somebody like fucking... You got like clothespins on your toes or something? You got a rubber band wrapped around your testes, right? Like,
we have gone after more sex traffickers, more child pornographers, more men who have done harm to children and young women than any administration in history. And so...
You guys are the best. Thank you for your service. Boom. I remember to do it. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your service.
Need to separate those two ideas, the fact that there's the Epstein files and whether there's anybody there that we can go after, and the work that we are doing every day.
Like your boss, Trump?
Which is extraordinary, and we will continue to do that.
Shabbat Shalom.
Among these new files is a list compiled by the FBI just in August of numerous salacious and, to be really clear, unverified allegations about President Trump. Why did the FBI create this list last year, and have all of these claims been investigated by the DOJ?
So look, it's not about President Trump. It's about a ton of people, multiple.
Well, a ton of people, not just Trump.
People that were, quote, in the Epstein files. And what I think folks will see when they review the materials we released is that there have been...
That Trump is completely innocent. He's the best guy ever.
Hundreds of calls made to the FBI where allegations are made by either anonymous individuals or people who are very quickly determined to not be credible, whether it's the nature of what they're saying or the fact they won't provide any information or corroboration. And that's part of the Epstein files.
I do want to move on. Former CNN anchor Don Lemon and another journalist, Georgia Fort, were arrested on Friday on charges they violated federal law during a
trespassing
protest at a Minnesota church. A conservative federal judge, somebody who clerked for Antonin Scalia, already had rejected those warrants and wrote that there is no...
All right, so this is fucking... All right, I just can't do it. He's just going to say some bullshit. Anyway, like... way to go, Dana. Ask some real questions of these guys. Okay, so moving on to Don Lemon's, there's 2 short films I'm going to show you here. And these seem to be the only thing they're posting from the Grammys. Nothing in his videos about the Grammys here. Nicki Minaj Sellout 4 days ago. Lemon Drop, Brian Free Speech. And then his live videos here. He does one more little thing we'll watch. He talks about Epstein. I just, I'm like a little bit saturated with Don Lemon's bullshit. But let's go to these short videos because I don't, again, I'm not sure where these things are. One's, like, both of them might be from the Grammys. One definitely is at the Grammys. So Clive Davis, I don't know where this is. It must be around the Grammys. There's no date on these short videos, so I don't know what the fuck's going on. But he said, here. So this must have happened at the Grammys. I'll check this out after I show you the other video. But Clive Davis is, some kind of a musical director, handler, whatever the fuck it is. And it looks like that's some kind of, they have food there at the Grammys, so this must be, Don Lemon's getting a standing ovation at the Grammys. Woo! Look at the guy taping his husband. All right, so that's Don Lemon's at the Grammys. So I thought the Grammys were on Sunday, right? And so that was a pre-Grammy party for for the Grammys, and he got standing at that. So there's a lot of celebrities, wherever it is. I mean, like he's just such a tool. Like it's hilarious that the liberals are celebrating him. So, more power to him for being just horrible and failing upwards. Has anybody failed upwards better than Donald Trump, obviously the biggest failure upwards. But, Don Lemon's is up there. Because of the scope, like how stupid he is and how well he's done. Donald Trump, there are a couple of Dons there. But Donald Trump is great at bullshitting people and pumping himself up. He's great at grifting, where Don Lemon's, I don't think he's great at anything. So, but again, being president as a grifter is quite an accomplishment, a failing upwards. And so I don't know, is the Grammys Sunday? I don't even know. I don't know what the fuck's going on. I'll check that out in a second. So here he is somewhere at a red carpet.
So the first time that I'll talk that you'll hear from me outside of the Don Lemon Show is on Jimmy Kimmel Live on ABC Monday night. Make sure you catch it.
Boom. Okay, so he didn't do anything at the Grammys other than this. I don't even know what the fuck this is. And I don't even know if the Grammys happen. So it has something to do with the Grammys. There's a red carpet there. And he's going on Jimmy Kimmel's. Because, they were both censored by Trump, It's just, it's so bad. So this came out a couple of hours ago. They arrested the wrong Don. It's late. They're there in California. I don't know what the fuck's going on. The Grammys were like yesterday. Bad Bunny won some bullshit album. I don't, like he sucks. So, but he's very popular. He sells a lot of shit. So I don't know. I think he's appearing at the Super Bowl, but whatever. I think he's wearing a dress, according to something I saw yesterday. What's happening? Let's get.
I think I'll do this one. Okay. So, anyways.
He's trying to just.
Oh, it's so good to be able to talk to you guys. It's so good to be able to see you. It's so good to be able to have gotten some rest. I have lots to tell you about. Do you guys want to hear? Do you want to hear everything? You want to hear all? Which lemon hat should I wear today?
I mean, you got to wear your own hat. Like, we're the one that no one can read your fucking name.
I do this one.
No, it's fucking looks
I
bad,
think I'll
buddy.
do this
Buddy,
one.
fucking.
Okay, so
They
anyways,
both look bad. They both are fucking shitty hats, and they don't fit your head.
yeah, I have lots to talk to you about. I went to the Grammys last night, and I went. People were like, "Why is he there?" Well, because I go every year. They invite me. I was supposed to cover it, and also make sure you guys have the thing from the tribute that they gave for me, which was just overwhelmingly positive, and I was surprised. I'll show you guys that. But I also wrote something on Substack this weekend that I'm gonna tell you about, and that is when I said my grandmother used.
Who gives a shit about your grandmother's bullshit? Or here it is. Here is this the thing?
Our constitutional rights as Americans. So I was surprised. I went to the Clive Davis party. This was, I think,
Why would I bother to? You know, he's going to post this everywhere.
24 hours or so after that I had been arrested in the same hotel, and this is the reception I got.
Woo! Oh, they love you, Don. You're such a truth teller.
Is going to be over. It's going to be gone. We won't have that anymore if we continue. And I also asked, I will share this with you as the Honorable Speaker Emeritus said to me. She said, you will be, just stay strong. You will become the face of the First Amendment. If you
see, this is the problem with the left, right? The right does this just as bad, differently. But this is where Joe Biden was a fucking mentally incompetent piece of shit. According to a doctor, they had an MSNBC then, a doctor that said he obviously has Parkinson's, that a first-year med student could diagnose him just by looking at the motherfucker, that he has Parkinson's, right? And so they elected this piece of shit Joe Biden, knowing full well that he was fucked in the head. And then Kamala Harris was then his VP, and she was unelectable, like Hillary Clinton disliked. No reason to put her up there. She hadn't accomplished anything. She built a political resume. Kamala knee pads Harris. She dated a guy who was 61 when she was 29, and, that's why I call it Kamala knee pads. And he gave her all the jobs that eventually led her to being senator. He was a kingmaker, this guy, whatever his name was. Forget his name, doesn't matter, who cares? And nobody liked her. She was unlikable. And they put her in there, and this is the same kind of thing. Don Lemon is a complete tool. He got Me Too'd at CNN for just saying insensitive things about women. One of his women co-hosts, took him to task with his, when he said that thing about whatever her name is, Nikki Haley being past her prime, right? And trying to defend it. And it was one of a number of he's such a boob. And then, he came out here and he's failing upwards again somehow. I don't know if this is upwards, but it's certainly, he has a much bigger channel and all this stuff than he should have because of these dumb fucking left-wing people who are all supposed to be educated and so much smarter than the inbred, uneducated rednecks and hillbillies that make up the Republican Party. But, they keep on pushing out these people, these like Don Lemons and Joe Bidens and fucking Kamala Harris's and Hillary Clinton that nobody likes and is unelectable. And so, why celebrate this guy? Because they know he's stupid. They know he's incompetent. They know he shouldn't have been at that church. It's stupid. It was just self-promoting. And, it's giving him a boost here. But it's just bad. All right, so let's move on from this fucking guy. And I just want to clarify what I was saying there. The left wing builds itself as the party of education. Professors and colleges, and, colleges are all very liberal, and they're all very progressive, and they're all very, very scientific. I mean, there's a few that are just right-wing Christian, universities, but the majority of colleges. And professional people who live in urban areas, the cities, that's where all the Democrats are. These are the sophisticated people who like the finer things in life and are educated, and they're the elite mental people. They have, the higher IQ people, the smarter people, the more sophisticated people are the Democrats, and these, country bumpkins who never get it, right? All these, prejudicial religious Bible thumping, moonshine making kind of hillbilly type of dumb fucks, right? That there's certainly a number of those people who still are backing Trump. It isn't like there isn't stupidity in the Republican Party. But you can't call these other people stupid and say that you're more sophisticated if you got a boob like Don Lemons as the face of your movement now, and you elected Joe Biden, who obviously had fucking mental deficiencies and was a piece of shit before that, right? And so, they want to be elitist, but this isn't elite. You think Don Lemon's elite mind and elite journalist? He sucks at everything. What is he good at, right? And what's his talent? He's not funny. He's not quick. He's fucking clueless. He's socially bad. He's unlikable, right? And he's like what is his talent, right? Like what does people think Don Lemon's talent is? He's so uninsightful and so clueless. That can't be it. Like I think that's how he bills himself. And so I mean, he's just a fucking disaster. And they keep on. He still manages to land on his feet. Anyways, let's. I want to see if there's anything else, but I just wanted to include that here. Okay, so it's 10 o'clock to the Monday, the 2nd of February. It's the Basant gathering that I am doing. Some of us are doing with the Gratefullness meditation. My wife and I just finished the meditation a little while ago. I already did a voiceover. It's just about the meditation, but it's connected to what I'm saying here. So I'm going to include it at the very end of this video. And you're going to hear a voiceover before that where I talk about comments and some other things. And, because I'm in this spiritual gathering and I'm just not into things, like these things mean less to me when I'm more focused on my spiritual life, like these, these trivial political things. And I really didn't want to deal with any Candace Owens bullshit or any TPUSK bullshit, any of these other things. But a little bit before the meditation, maybe about an hour before, I saw her video come out, and I just wanted to see if there's anything I was going to cover. And you're going to hear me talk about this in the voiceover I've already made with the comments, where I was like, I didn't know whether I was going to add something here or not, and I was not going to, but then I watched her video and I was like, there's nothing here. But she said some things and I wanted to point some things out. During meditation, these ideas, like sort of there's a flood of information that came to me, like insight to this. And so she starts off here.
Good evening, my fellow Goyim. How's that? I've decided that when you guys actually move to elect me the dictator of the United States, or maybe the dictator of the world, that's how I will greet you guys every night and bring you the news. I don't know how your weekend went, but I was marked safe from being in the Epstein files. Me, Ye, the artist formerly known as Kanye West, we were marked safe. Boy, oh boy.
And I was just like, like she's just so smug and just so sucky. I was like I just, like I said before, I'm just, like if she's going to drop some videos of Erica Kirk, I've been covering this stuff and, kind of want to bring it to an end. There's nothing going to come of it, like I said in the beginning. And so, there's nothing here in this video. Like nothing worth covering, nothing that's going to move the story forward. And so this is about her and about the truth community. What's happened to it, right? The dumbing down of it. I'll get to that in a bit. But this part here.
Boy, were we right. We were so right. This podcast, can I just say that it's actually aging like fine wine? Because this was me on like Thursday of last week. Take a listen. This is the synagogue of Satan. I do not go halfway with defending pedophiles. Goodbye. Are you out of your minds? I hate all of you. I think you guys are all a part of the same demonic entity. Your God is Satan. You guys are Baal worshipers. You will continue to kill and sacrifice children until you feel that demon rewards you.
Okay, so, demonic energy, like for people who really want to know about this. Not in some bullshit Christian way, because the Christian religion, I've talked about it, and what's in the Bible, and it's remedial, and it's, it's just not, even the best of the stuff in the Christian religion is not, really quite spiritual yet. It's religions lead to spirituality, where you have an internal relationship with God. But demonic energy, your ego is a potential demon. Every person's ego is potentially demonic because your ego can, and probably at some point in your life will choose to go against your soul's path, your soul's intentions, and God's will, right? There are rules and laws, and there's principles, and there's there's the God's plan, and you'll just be like, fuck that, I'm going against it. So that's what the devil did. That's what Lucifer did. Lucifer questioned God's, thought that, he knew more than God. I mean, that's in terms of the story of the biblical story of this character named Lucifer, right? And so when you're talking about being a demon, it's every time that you lie and you go against, you deceive and you deceive yourself. That's demonic, right? Anything that you do that goes against God's will is demonic. And people do this all the fucking time and don't think about correcting themselves, but are really big on everyone else correcting their demonic behavior, right? And this is what she's doing here. But her implying that all these people that are sexual predators are demonic, devil-worshipping. I mean, the name of this video is BAAL, Ball, So Hard, the Epstein Files. Now, she's talking about how great she is and all these things she's saying. Let me continue my thought here in a second.
And I stand against
Candace,
you.
You're intense.
Yeah, this is how I feel about these people.
Intense.
They are satanic right and left at the top.
Okay. She's going to say something about how great she is here.
I'm kind of feeling like I actually didn't go hard enough. Anyway, today we are going.
Okay, she just sucks, so smug and so sucky, just so icky as a person. Like, just this is demonic behavior, right? This is her ego and all these things. So, the first thing to know about is almost all sexual abuse comes from people who were sexually abused themselves, right? If they weren't sexually abused, they were twisted in some fucking way, and maybe a past life thing. And almost always, it involves past life things, right? Because sexual abuse breaks people. My ex was somebody who claimed to be sexually and emotionally and physically abused by her parents, and they were elitist. Her dad was a CEO of a Fortune 500 company, right? Was somebody who was very successful, and her mom, they were these kind of rich white people that lived in rich white neighborhoods, very wealthy people. And, they came from, that kind of stock, those kind of, whatever you think about elitist type of people. Not, top of the line, but, they were people who were smart and educated and these things. But my ex was broken. Like, she was broken, and there's no fixing that, right? Another one of my exes, a girl I dated who was a nurse, and she had been working in these treatment centers and hospitals and mental illness places when I started working years later at a treatment center. And I was talking to her about it, and I felt like I was making a difference, right? I was new and kind of naive, and I was talking about how I was helping some of these kids change or whatever. I was probably a month or two in or whatever, 5 months in, something. And there was a pause, and she said, these kids, they should just be taken out back and machine gunned, right? Like executed, like all these kids in these treatment centers. And, that's harsh, and I'm not saying that that's what I believe, but I understand why she said that. After working with these people and being married to one, someone who's an abuse survivor, and you guys probably know people, or might be someone yourself, who experiences severe trauma. And lots of people, it's a rare person that can somehow not be broken by that. Almost everybody is. And they're warped and twisted. So these people who sexually abuse kids, they know that that's what they're doing to these kids, right? And so you can say that they're demonic and they're demons, which sure, that's true. But also they were brought into this thing by somebody else that did something like this to them. And it's 100%, like anybody who works in this field will know this. The kids that were sexually abused by their moms, boys who were sexually abused by their moms, I don't know about girls. I don't know how, I didn't experience any of that, right? There weren't any girls at the treatment center I worked at. So I don't know. And that's a very rare case. But even the boys who are sexually abused by their moms, is a rare case. But the kids that were sexually abused by their moms, they were the fucking worst. They were the most twisted, fucked up kids because their mom is supposed to be their primary love source, right? But these kids are fucked up. And then they do fucked up things like abuse other kids. And, most of these people that are involved in this got twisted up sexually, and they're all fucked up in one way or another, right? And you can call them demonic ball worshippers and things. But and I'm not saying there should be compassion or any of these things because it's something that has to be eradicated from the human genome because of the damage that does, right? I mean, all this type of abuse. And there's so much abuse out there, right? But this is and I'm just done with the meditation, so I don't want to use the C word, or I don't really want to, get into the names here of how bad a person this person is, Candace Owens, because she's, she just pushed Trump on the American people a year and a half ago, right? She was taking shekels with Charlie Shekels, who was a piece of shit who was taking shekels, which we know, right? That one just got stuck in, the piece of shit thing. But these people that she worked with were taking shekels. She worked for Ben Shapiro, was taking shekels, and they were all promoting Trump, who is just a horrible, demonic person. And Trump is doing so much damage that's going to cause so much, evil, for people. As a lot of this stuff comes from poverty and comes from, if it's not physical, material poverty, it's commercial, it's spiritual poverty or emotional poverty, all of which, and just intellectual poverty. These are all things that Trump's promoting. Trump's a degraded person, and he's degrading everything around him and everybody, and it's going to affect the world and America. It's already affecting the world and America in a horrible place. And she finally recently came out and said, Trump's a part of the deep state, right? Right. So, but where were you when it mattered? Where were you in 2016 when he was being elected? And then all that time after that, and all this time that you've been promoting him and attacking the fucking liberals and the Democrats because they're the real problem. When really it's all of us that need to, get rid of our willfully choosing not to go along with our soul's path and God's path, right? And it comes from big egos and this thing that she does, right? And so, she's having this victory dance that she somehow was instrumental in talking about Epstein. Now, in this video, I showed you that Mika Brzezinski talking about Jeffrey Epstein's victims, and his collaborators and these people. And Mika Brzezinski was denying the Epstein list with a bunch of other people, not 6 months ago, right? But now they're all about it. And Candace Owens was pushing for Donald Trump's election, talked about Epstein, but she missed out a very important part. So let me show you this photo again. So I said, as this photo was dated, well, here it says, right here, it's 1/4/15, right? You can see that right there, right? It says, right there, it says 1/4/15. So this was the article that I found this quote in. It wasn't the original quote that came from 2002. Just to clarify, I'm editing. This was an article from Gawker about Trump, and they pulled that quote from the article from the New Yorker or something like that, some New York magazine that was from 2002. So Trump gave his praise of Jeffrey Epstein in 2002, and I knew about it in 2015, right? And so this had been out there for a while. And these people really didn't understand what was going on, and I barely knew what was going on in terms of Jeffrey Epstein. But this was the quote, right? And this quote was, Trump was Jeffrey Epstein's buddy. And you can make any kind of excuse you want, and Bill Clinton was somehow worse than Bill Gates or whatever, because you're a conservative, and the liberals are always worse because they're, when are you going to wake the fuck up, right? When are you going to stop being a piece of shit? When are you going to see it, right? That this is, and it isn't about them at all. It's about you and me, and they're an example of what to do wrong that you're supposed to figure out for yourself. And Candace Owens is another example of this, right? Because Candace Owens and these people who are taking this victory lap. I covered this in July 10th. This is something I covered July 10th, 2015. So over 10 years ago. And so what? I knew about this. What difference? I had this knowledge. And I disseminated it out to you all, made videos about it. Talked about how Trump was this creepy guy. Not that I was pushing for Hillary Clinton, because I didn't vote for either one of them, right? But I was saying that Trump is scummy, and he was pals with Jeffrey Epstein. And we didn't even know who Jeffrey Epstein was as much. And I covered it for over 10 years when it came back around. And it didn't have an effect, and it really, I don't, what can I say? How could I pat myself on the back for this? That I was right about these things in terms of my assessment, that I was proven right. Who gives a shit? That's such a low bar to cross in terms of your spiritual evolution and what you can become as a person. That I can see lies and see through some of the lies and see through truth. Connecting to the divinity within you is so much bigger and better than that. And that's just a journey where there's no patting yourself on the back and walking around like you're some great fucking person. And we were here way before these pieces of shit like Candace Owens and, Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly, who now are truther adjacent Joe Rogan, right? Now, I used to thought it was good that they were just talking about these things. And it was becoming more mainstream. I was like, all right, that's okay. I guess it's okay. I saw Tucker Carlson, come on, to some guy, the guy Adam versus the man, who was not that great himself, but certainly better than Tucker Carlson. And he asked Tucker Carlson at some event, I don't know when it was, probably around this time, 2015, 16. And he asked him about what he thought about 9/11, and Tucker Carlson said, come on, it's not fake, come on. You people should be locked up. That's what his attitude was. And so many years later, he's talking about it. And I thought, well, that's at least he's evolving, right? But now I think something different. Now I think I've thought this for a while, but I thought of a good example when I was in meditation. And so what you have is these companies that sell natural and organic foods, right? And they'll be sold at Whole Foods and some of these other places, and they'll be mom and pop type of organizations, and they start mass producing something healthy, something grass-fed milk, whatever, free-range eggs, maybe whatever it might be, and at some point they're bought by some evil corporation, because that's the only path you can go. They're not making money. If you ever see these things on Shark Tank, they're not able to make money. They have, they have large production issues. They can't get the capital. They don't have access to cheap loans like these people at the top of the system. And so they're bought by Nabisco or Nestle or Pepsi or BlackRock or any number of these organizations. And then the quality of the food, that used to be organic and it used to be natural, goes down. Because they start substituting ingredients, and it's just not handled in the same way. And even if the ingredients stay the same, the energy of the products isn't as good because it's mass produced. And maybe they start, making it in China or some part of it, and and before you know it, it's not what it used to be. And you might have liked the product and say, "Oh, this product's great," but then by the time it's taken over by these companies, and that's what's happened to the truth community. Because all the people I used to listen to, and I wouldn't listen to them now because I've evolved, but they were great for me back then, and they're certainly better than these pieces of shit, Candace Owens and the rest of them. They have been erased from the truth community. And they've replaced them with these pieces of shit like Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson, and, everything's dumbed down, and it's worse. And, this has happened to my spiritual organization with this piece of shit Dodgy. And so that's why, it's hard for me to watch. Something that was once good is not as good and getting worse, right? And this smug fuck, Candace Owens, is out there, just celebrating her. Oh, yes, I've been on this Jeffrey Epstein thing, and I'm just so great, and I know so much, and I'm so right all the time, and I'm so wonderful in my podcast, and, fucking, what? Like what? Like, nothing, none of us should feel great about what we do. right? It's not that impressive. It's, it's not even scratching the surface of what you can become as an evolutionary, evolved, fully evolved, realized soul, or even a liberated soul. It's, you're not on a spiritual path, and it's not anything, right? It's celebrating the miracles that Jesus did. Like, that's the top of the line. Like, you get to manipulate reality through your spiritual powers, and that's somehow you're great, and you must be the son of God. It's a nothing thing to be able to change reality and manifest things on a spiritual level, because of your spiritual evolution. It's one of the first things you get on your spiritual evolution. And for most people, it'd be better off if it gets blocked, because people misuse it like Jesus did, where he was just showing off, right? And people think he's so great, but he was just showing off. He wasn't really, I mean, if God ordered him to raise Lazarus from the dead, then sure. And again, I don't know how much of those things are real. I mean, it's 2,000 years ago, but anybody who uses miracles, a miracle can only be used because you're changing God's will. So it's really an act of rebellion. You're saying, hey, God, you got it wrong. This guy shouldn't be dead. I'm going to raise him from the dead because fuck you, God, I know more than you do, right? So only if God orders you to do so. But if you're trying to show off and walk on water, whatever fuck they claim he did, or the things that Moses did in Egypt, only if God orders it. Of course, they say God ordered it, but of course the God that's represented in the Old Testament is a demon. And so this is what I'm talking about. There's nothing impressive here. If you're able to disseminate the truth and see the truth, yeah, you're better than the average dumb fuck, but it isn't all that impressive. Like, I've been doing this for years, and I've been right, I think almost like 100% of the time, because it isn't really hard. And, of course there's going to be little bits and pieces of being wrong or whatever it might be, but it doesn't really matter whether you're right or wrong at the end of the day, because you're not changing shit. You're just reporting on something that is already, it's already either done, or its path and its ending is already solidified, and you're just talking about something that's already happened and can't be changed, and nobody really wants to change it anyway. People just like, it's just some, intricate form of gossip. So going back to Candace Owens here.
When Max, like always, welcome back to Candace.
Going Max, like always, welcome back to Candace. Going Max, that was something Charlie Kirk said. And just her here and her fucking photos and her ego and all this shit. It's like, it just hit me on like how fucking gross it is.
Start with the obligatory question. Are we still talking about the Epstein files? Are we still talking about those Epstein files? Yes, actually, we are, Trump. We are, man. I can't believe you're tangled up in this, that you would keep this a secret.
Yeah, well, you should have believed it when you were fucking pitching and chilling for him. Like, take some responsibility for putting this fucking guy in the White House, right? Everybody who voted for him and everybody who shilled for him, I mean, even more so the people who shilled for him, admit that you were like fucking completely either bamboozled or lying to your audience. You were completely, you're a complete dumb fuck. So don't swagger around like you're some great person. When you can't even see what Trump was, you couldn't even see what fucking Trump was, but you're gonna be doing these fucking victory dances like how great you are and how right you were about the Epstein files. Where were you 3 years ago? Where were you a year and a half ago? I mean, and even then you didn't understand that Trump was compromised the whole time, and the evidence was over fucking whelming, right? He said he was a terrific guy, and he said he liked young girls. I mean, that was just that quote alone was enough, and you could see what kind of a person he was, what kind of character he had. And so you also could see what a piece of shit Charlie Kirk was, and you're still talking about him like he's a saint. And so she's just absolutely abhorrent, right? It's just fucking, it's horrible. And again, it doesn't matter that you're wrong, because it's okay to be wrong. But don't, like, ignore the fact you were wrong. Like, not that we owe an apology every time we're wrong, because we're human beings. But if you're going to walk around talking about how great your podcast was, it wasn't great, because, you got this guy elected, you and Charlie Kirk and the rest of those people. And again, like, not that that matters, because it was already rigged for him in the first fucking place. But you jumped on this guy's taint, like you were licking this guy's taint for whatever period of time. And then, now he turns out to be a piece of shit. He's like, yeah, now he's in the deep state. No, he was always this way. He was this way, he was on The Apprentice. He was this way before that. He's a broken, fucked up person with weird shit going on in terms of you didn't take that Stormy Daniels shit at all seriously. You didn't question that he was banging a porn star and cheating on his wife. All you religious fucks, you talk about God in religion and morality and right wing morals, and this guy was banging fucking strippers and porn stars and sexually abusing beauty contestants and all this stuff that was known about him, saying he could just go grab a woman by the pussy, but you weren't going to take any of that shit seriously. You were going to dismiss all that stuff because it was better for you in your career and what you were doing and the things that you want. Like she cherry picks things, like things that are complete lies, like Mitch Snow and these other things, and goes after people with flimsy evidence at best. And even if the people are total pieces of shit, she's hanging out with people like Andrew Tate and that other guy from England, whatever his name is, the guy with the long hair, the comedian that's being accused of rape. You know who I'm talking about. And all these other people. And so, and then when then they're like, oh yeah, now they're bad. Now that I'm not friends with them, they're bad. No, they were bad the whole fucking time. And so, just icky. So, I'm going to put my audio, like I said, the one I did earlier, at the end after this. I have one audio that I did about comments and things, and there'll be another audio added onto it. And I'm going to wrap this one up now. It's late, but you get the idea. And so just, abhorrent. She's just the worst. Okay, Tuesday, February 3rd. And I just did the morning meditation. There's one more to go. That was number 5 out of 6. And after I finished these clips last night and the voiceovers that I did, I realized there was a big chunk of what I want to talk about here with Candace. So let me show you this again.
Oh boy, were we right?
Again, the we right stuff is, you weren't right. Don't be like you were right. You backed Trump. You backed Charlie Kirk. You did all these bad things, right? You're supporting bad things.
You're so right. This podcast, can I just say that it's actually aging like fine wine? Because this was me on Thursday of last week. Take a listen. This is the synagogue.
So it takes. That's how long it takes to age wine, 7 days, right?
I do not go halfway with defending pedophiles. Goodbye. Are you out of your minds? I hate all of you. I think you guys are all a part of the same demonic entity. Your God is Satan. You guys are Baal worshippers. You will continue to kill and sacrifice children until you feel that demon rewards you. And I stand against
Candace,
you.
You're intense.
Yeah, this is how I feel about these people.
Intense.
They are satanic right and left at the top. I'm kind of feeling like I actually didn't go hard enough.
Okay, so what I wanted to mention there is that she joined the Catholic Church. She's a part of the Catholic Church. This is her big problem with all these things. She goes in hard on these things, and there's you're with her or you're against her. And if you're against her, she'll create any kind of narratives, whether there's factual or not, and she'll slander people if she has to, make things up, do innuendos, and push stuff out. Even if she's right and the person's a piece of shit, which often they are, like Erica Kirk and TPUSK and the rest of these people. She will do whatever it takes to malign the people, whether it's fact or not, and she's, it's bad for her audience. But if she's with you, like the Catholic Church, she'll ignore, Russell Brand, that was the guy I was mentioning yesterday, the comedian, whoever it is, right? Those people, that's false accusation, Michael Jackson, these things. I mean, Michael Jackson, the Catholic Church, these are two people that she's, an organization and a person who are clearly guilty, right? And she's also pushing the Catholic Church in her narratives. She was saying Charlie and Erica were going to the Catholic churches and attending Mass and, all these things. And so, to call all the people in the Epstein thing demonic, and, which I explained yesterday what that is and how that, relates. But to call them all demonic, that's, all right, sure. That's true, but also all the other people that you're supporting, and when, Trump, when you were supporting, he was demonic, and, the Catholic Church is is worse. And I've said this before. This is one of the few things my wife and I really don't argue about things. But she disagreed with me with something I said in a video when I said that stuff that happened with David Koresh was worse than what happened with Epstein, with him saying that he was the only one who got to impregnate women, the women that were married to other dudes at his cult and these things. And the reason I said it's worse is because it involves God, that and this applies to the Catholic Church. These priests represent God to these young people. And so when the priests sexually abuse them, that's like it was a representation of God. And many of these kids who were sexually abused in the Catholic Church are atheists now, or are very angry and hateful towards God, because these guys are called men of God, right? These priests, my sister married an ex-priest, and someone was saying to me like it was hard for him, because when a priest walks into a room, especially amongst Catholics, they're given this elevated status, right? Yes, father, this, they call priests fathers. You call the priest a father, right? So and they represent, the Father God, right, in the church, like it's a representation of this, of Jesus and God. So, and Jeffrey Epstein's a piece of shit who's a businessman who's a Mossad agent, all these things, right? And criminal piece of shit that like you wouldn't. He doesn't have anything to do with divinity. But these people who are abused by the Catholic Church, these kids, it's a double whammy. And many times the parents would reject, the kid would say, the kid would come home, and oftentimes it's a boy-on-boy crime, and it's younger kids than with Epstein, right? And then the Catholic Church covering it up and moving these pedophiles to other places where they can do more damage. Not warning their parishioners. The evil here, like how fucking evil it is. Louis C.K.'s got a bit about how the Catholic Church was 100% just something to fuck kids, and it's kind of funny, but it's also twisted and whatever. Like there's a moment where like he goes, well, I was a kid, I was Catholic, and I didn't get fucked, and the priest goes, are you sure? And he goes, oh yeah, I did, this thing, right? But it's like not being believed by everybody in town, in your community, if you came forward and said what happened to you. And, your parents and all the people rejecting it because they, the church held such a sway with them. And this has gone on for fucking centuries. And, part of it is they don't marry. And so the not marrying stuff, for nuns, they would attract like lesbians and women who didn't want to marry, right? And things like that. And then, the church they would get pedophiles, because it was this position of power where they were free from, they had access to kids, and they were trusted, and they were, there was protection, who was going to go against the church. And so these priests, the word got out that it was a safe place and venue for pedophiles, right? And this bitch fucking converted to Catholicism and is talking about it all the time and trying to get other people to go into it, and yet going hard at Jeffrey Epstein and calling these people evil and demonic. And, and so there was a woman who did the Sajmarg meditation, and she was somebody who was semi-truther, but also wanted to do a farm and do a community farm, the kind of thing my family was into. And so there was some idea that we would do that. We met in India, but she had been sexually abused by a priest and wrote a book about it. And a nice woman, but she had a really high voice, really annoyingly high voice, like somebody who, stopped developing as a child. Again, she was a young child, and she was sexually abused by the priest and went through the whole ostracization from her family and all those things. And it was a miracle that she found God in a different form, and she found like the best thing, the Sajmarg system. But she was very wrecked. She, people had difficulty with her, and it was clear to me that it wasn't a good idea that we went into the farm stuff with her. Like, it just wasn't going to happen. But she was, ardently trying to build a community, but didn't have the resources and and it was kind of messed up. She was one of the few people that reached out to me and said she didn't like my ex because they were both abuse survivors, so I thought that was interesting. But she thought she was fake and performative. And, and then when I criticized Dodgy, she kind of turned on me and said something like, whatever it was, which I thought was odd because she should have known more than anybody else the abuse of power in religious type of situation, having gone through what she went through and how that can turn. And, the same criticism she got for outing these priests as pedophile that she was abused by, that, like she's doing the same thing to me about blowing the whistle on Kamlish being a piece of shit. But, people are people. And I felt bad for her because she was broken. These kids get fucking broken by this stuff. And the Catholic Church and the kids are affected by that. It also involves God. Like I said. So, for Candace Owens, she's just, this is what makes her suck. Like she's, so arrogant and so smug about, her alleged, she's like claiming victory here about Jeffrey Epstein and these people. And yet she's promoting the biggest pedophile organization that's far worse than anything that Jeffrey Epstein could do. And those girls, and I'm not trying to trivialize any of it, they were 15, 16, mostly 14, which, isn't great, but these young kids who don't know what's going on at all, 6, 7 years old, these altar boys and things. I mean, there's lots of things that make it, much worse in terms of the effects on the victims, and I'm not excusing and minimizing the Jeffrey Epstein stuff. It's just the stuff with the Catholic Church is worse. And, Candace Owens should be all about that. And, might be some point in the future where she comes out and slams the Catholic Church, but it's fucking too late. Like, you converted. Like, you didn't have to, like you could, I mean, she comes out and says, hello, Goyim, and she's, anti the Jewish stuff, but she's still, putting the Old Testament out there like it's, like it's the word of God. And so, I mean, all of that, like she's, just horrible. Like they're just also horrible. They're the new face of what used to be the truth community, right? The corporate owned, controlled bullshit face of what used to be an organic movement. And it's just tough to see all this stuff. I've talked about this, personally, that it's hard to witness. Okay, so, that's all for this thing. I got the two voiceovers here to get to. The one I did earlier yesterday and the one I did last night after the meditation. And then we'll wrap this video up after that. Okay, like just with Don Lemon, I'm not really feeling having to listen to Candace Owens today. Like I'm just kind of over the whole thing. Just took a righteous snap. The hawk went away for 3 days. Those of you guys who were interested in the hawk update, but I just saw the hawk in our old barn. It sort of startled me because all the chickens were out of there. I was just going to check and see if there's any eggs in there. We have like an old barn where the cows used to sleep, and we used to give them food in there. And then there's like one half is that, and the chickens have been hanging out there, and but during the cold. And I went in there, and the hawk was like startled by me, and I was startled by it, and it flew out. But there's that. So if there's something here I've posted on Candace Owens, you've already probably seen it, but I'd rather not have to. Some days you just don't want to deal with certain things, and that's, I don't want to deal with TPUSK or Candace or any of that bullshit today. I do have some comments, though, just some small, short ones here. And somebody writes, Sir, I'm a big fan and loyal subscriber, so I can say this with a lot of respect. It's Chat GPT, not Chat GPTP. Yeah, that ship's already sailed. And then somebody wrote, it's too late. He's been saying that for a long time. There's no going back. And this same person then wrote earlier, I find myself saying TPUSK unironically, and by default now, help, I'm going to end up in trouble. Yeah, that's my goal, is to get everyone to mispronounce shit. Like Instagool. Like when I'm typing in Instagram, if I want to pull up an Instagram tab, I type in Instagool. I want to have people adding S's to the ends of names, and that everyone has the middle initial J. So It's my legacy where they're changing the English language and bringing back the word ghoul. Okay, somebody writes this. Yeah, your side of the left is completely deranged. Yeah, your side of the left is completely deranged. The left has done nothing but fuck everyone over, and here you are suddenly worried about Trump abusing his power. You know, these incoherent comments, of course I have dyslexia, so sometimes my titles look kind of fucked. So, we're not, very inarticulate because, I've explained that before. But some of these comments, like, this makes no sense at all. But the person saying, first of all, let me go through the first part of it. The person saying, yeah, your side of the left is completely deranged. The left has done nothing but fuck everyone over. So I guess this person's thinking that I'm a left person. I don't understand what they're saying here. But that's not true. So the left and the hippie movement brought in a lot of great things. Now, organic foods and environmental things are really important. Republicans and corporations, and if you're like that much of a dumb fuck, you think the corporation should just go about their business without worrying about polluting. And you're so brainwashed by this climate change bullshit. The climate change thing is fucked. But, there is real issues with pollution, like really bad issues. And go to some of these countries that don't have an FDA. One of those guys, one of those Alex Jones shills, it might have been the health ranger, went to China, was doing business with China, because everybody tries to get shit done in China, and had nothing but horrible things to say about China or the Chinese people and dealing with these businesses, and published some kind of thing that was pretty well done for one of those shill pieces of shit Alex Jones people. And there was a guy in China who was in charge of water pollution, and he said that there was a lake there that was perfectly fine, and somebody offered him $100,000 to drink a shot glass full of the water there, and he did not, take the person up on the offer because the place is a fucking pit. And I've seen shit in India when I was there, in these countries that don't have environmental EPA type of governmental agencies, the stuff that Ralph Nader brought in, also being able to sue these corporations that came from, there's a lot of great things that the left has brought in. The idea of progress and the idea of new ideas and questioning traditions and questioning, the old guard is a good thing. Like, that's what every youthful group needs to do, is question whatever is going on, because you need to question it. Like, I don't expect people to just have faith in everything I'm saying, especially young people. I mean, the whole Sajmark system that I do, the meditation, is about experiencing it. And if you don't experience it, it's like impossible to do, because there's nothing else there, right? Like the Sajmark system, the ashrams, got progressively nicer as more and more people went there. They're botanical gardens. But India is not a great place if you don't feel the transmission, and if you don't feel the energy in India. The energy is amazing. India is a very peaceful place, a very ancient place, but the materialistic fucking nightmare that the country's become, and the overpopulation, it's dirty, it's gross, it's overpopulated, it's hard to get through, it's hard to drive through. My kids and I were going from our hotel to the airport in a city that was an intentional city, like they put planning into it. I think it's called Jaipur. And my family and I went there during the big flood. And it was a city that was well planned. Like, they did things and, but because of that, the population tripled and it was impossible to get around. And what should have taken like an hour and 2 at the most took like 8 hours. I mean, just brutal. And so if you go to these places and you see the way that their environment is, and their various levels of pollution and these things, you can really appreciate the Environmental Protection Agency. The right-wing dopes have been pushing against stuff like that. But the most important thing is the environment, because you're coming back in the future, whether you agree with past lives or not, And your kids and your grandkids are going to have to live here, as are our other animals and other species. And so before you do any kind of expansion or you rape the earth of resources and do all the bullshit that people have been doing now, especially right-wing dopes, and, bringing in weapons of mass destruction and fucking around with atomic energy and polluting the world with Wi-Fi and electromagnetic pollution and all that other bullshit, you should think about how this is going to affect everybody and everything else and everybody and everything else in the future. And we don't do that. We're totally irresponsible, immature little fucking monkeys running around with, weapons and scientific technology that we don't deserve. And we're fucking up the world. And so the left wing has done things, the true left, the true liberal ideas are important. Just like in conservatism is important. When you're young, you tend to be liberal. And as you get older, you tend to be conservative, right? When you're young, even if you're a conservative, you're still going to be more about change and more about new ideas and more about being open to things. It's just the way you are. As you get older, you don't want to take as many chances. And, so there's these balancing of, the old and the new that needs to happen. And true conservatism and true liberalism are like things that, could be good. If they're in balance and they respect each other and these other things. What you see now is just a fucking an antagonistic left-right fucking, bullshit battle that's been, put out there to create imaginary conflict and divide the country. So, like, morons like this who leave comments like this, who say shit like that, the conservative movement has done great things. Religious people, I always talk about how, I talk about the Bible and I'm kind of over the fucking many of the Christians that come and comment here and many of the bullshit Christian organizations like TPUSK and the rest of that shit. But I value, like, homeschooling. Like, if you're homeschooling your kids, you owe the conservative community a great deal, or Christians, conservative Christians, like my family did. Like, without the conservative Christians, there'd be no homeschooling. Like, just for example, like, without the liberals, there'd be no organic food. Or any of that type of stuff. Even though the organic label is corrupted, there'd be no health food and there'd be no alternative medicine. And so you need both things. And so people are too stupid to fucking separate the bullshit that they're seeing from the real thing, the good thing that could have been there. The new ideas and the young ideas and, questioning authority and questioning, you should question your indoctrination. You should question your upbringing, right? You should question your religion. You shouldn't decide on your religion just because your parents did it. I didn't want my kids to take, to do the Sajmark meditation because I did it. That would be the worst fucking thing. Like, they would never, they have to experience it. They'd have to experience the benefits. When you do real spirituality, you do anything worthwhile, you need to experience something from it to believe in it, right? You can't take other people's word for it. You can't do it because someone else is doing it. It has to take some ownership in it, right? And so then the end of this person's comment, let me see, do I have it here? Is this it? Yeah. And then the person says, the left has done nothing but fuck everyone over. Yeah, because like you watch Fox News and you got fucking double-digit IQ. Like that's, and here you are suddenly worried about Trump abusing his power. You should always be worried about the government abusing their power. When you pull that lever for Trump or anybody else, there should be some part of you that goes, I hope this person, and I'm not going to just trust them. I'm going to, make sure I pay attention. And if we had any leverage, use that leverage to make sure that this person doesn't abuse their power. Like whenever you vote for somebody or when anybody gets elected, you should worry about them abusing their power because they always do. It's just how bad they are, and Trump is the fucking worst. He's mentally ill, he's an arrogant prick, and he's been giving a green light to drive this country into the ground by the controllers, and you guys who are still Trumpers are too stupid to fucking see it. And the fact that you would say, oh, I'm not going to worry about Trump, just like the liberals didn't worry about Obama, and he was a horrible warmonger and did all that stuff. And so somebody else wrote, when life gives you lemons, this is to do with Evil versus Evil, Frenemies, Erica versus Candace, Megan versus Don Lemons. And this is the new video that just came out today now. Today would be Monday, February 2nd. And so this video is going up tomorrow on the Tuesday the 3rd at night. And the person wrote, when life gives you lemons, make insufferable content. And then right under there, someone said about my channel, your channel sucks. And so those were the comments. There's one more comment I want to get from my other channel. So I got to pull that one up here. And I got to find it. So here's the comment. And I don't believe in anything Indian. This is from my other channel. This has to do with the individual sitting for a couple weeks ago. I don't believe in anything. I don't believe anything India believes, but I do believe in your good intentions, brother. Thank you for all that you do. So I'm not mad at this comment, but you do believe in things that India believes in, because there are things that India believes in or has created, inventions. You can go through them. Many of the inventions that India has brought to life, including the concept of zero. If you believe that zero or nothing, this was a concept that first came about. I mean, there's all this mathematical stuff that happened in ancient India, right? There's all these inventions that are still used today and are the basis for other inventions. The most important discovery is that of the Atman, or the soul, right? So all of these other religions, the Mahabharata happened before Judaism. They want to tell you that's not true, but it is. And that's 5,000 years ago. It happened at the beginning of the Kali Yuga. And so the end of the previous Yuga, which I forget which that is, but that was like 5,000 years ago, over 5,000 years ago. So Judaism started sometime after that. And all the other religions that started, that are the major religions, started after that. Before the Mahabharata was the Ramayana. And even ChatGPT that fucks. I asked ChatGPT and it's worthless, because it was like I said, when were the Vedas written? Well, first I asked when was the Ramayana, and it said between 5,000 and 7,000 years ago. And I said, well, how is that possible when the Mahabharata happened 5,000 years ago? And it said, yes, you're right. So it's probably 7,000 to 8,000 years ago. Right, so it's just changing the fucking dates, right? But the Vedas were written before the Mahabharata and before the Ramayana. And then I said, when were the Vedas written? It said 3,000 years ago. And I said, how is that possible when they were written before the Mahabharata? It said, yeah, you're right, it was written. So it's fucking stupid shit. And I knew that the Indian religions predated all these things. There's a fear of India, the ancient India. There's a time when India dominated the world and was the centerpiece of the world. And there was some of that, Britain looked at India as the jewel, the crown jewel of the British Empire. India had so many, like, they were cooking without any fucking spices in England, in Europe. Like, all these spices and all this, all this innovation came from this, this ancient Indian culture that became degraded by England. They, all the stuff that's happened now, the poverty, the overpopulation, came after the British conquered India, right? And so, but the most important thing is the soul. And, they'll acknowledge that the ancient Indian religion goes back at least 14,000 years. But there's no history, really. Most of the history ends 5,000 years ago. So half the time you ask a question of ChatGPT or Gemini, they'll say, well, that happened about 5,000 years ago. Because there's almost no history before that, right? Like, very seldom do they find an ancient civilization. They found an ancient civilization in India. The Indus civilization, I think, is 30,000 years old. But very seldom do they find things like that. But, they won't acknowledge that there were superior people here with superior technology, and they just left. And what they left behind is all of us that are, we're some sort of slave. The modern-day human being is some sort of slave race created by higher-level people, like human beings that were much more developed spiritually and technologically. But in that, with all that, there was the discovery of the soul that happened sometime in ancient India, and I think it happened between 75,000 to 200,000 years ago. But everybody who believes in a soul and believes in the concept of zero and some of these other important things believes in Indian stuff. There's a lot of stuff in every religion that comes from India, right? The story of Karna which happened many years before Moses was, it's very similar to the Moses story. A lot of the ancient religious stuff from Judaism and Christianity comes from other stories, either stuff from Egypt, Egyptian stories, the Egyptian culture, or from India and some of these other places. So a lot of the Christ story is not things that, they were things that Christ didn't participate in. They just added those things in, and so they manipulated these things. So a lot of what you believe in, a lot of what you believe historically, and what you believe in terms of your religion came from India and these other places. India being the premier place for people to connect to God, even now with it being a materialistic pit. It's a tough place materially now, but the spiritual bones are still there, and hopefully they'll have a second coming. We shall only see. Let me wrap this one up here. Okay, so here's the voiceover. Today's Tuesday. This is February 3rd. The voiceover I did last night after the meditation that it went in along with the stuff I did with talked about with Candace. Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. This is February 2nd. This will be the day 3, I guess, part of the day 3 video. I just completed the night meditation with my wife. The 4 satsang on Babaji's birthday was quite a sitting. And, I had quite a number of thoughts of things that I should say. And I don't know how many things I've said before about, interpreting sittings. I'm a little bit out of it. So because of the sitting, I'm sort of really, it was a really deep sitting. But there's 2 things I want to talk about. One is going to be a clip I put in my video for tomorrow that'll go up on February 3rd on my Pockets of the Future channel. And I'm going to cover some stuff about Candace Owens, and that's, it's not important to this, what I'm going to say here, but it's connected because of the both of these thoughts both of these ideas were there. So like I've said many times before, that the meditation, everybody meditates all the time. It's a state of mind. People meditate without calling it meditation, but their mind and it's a condition that you go into. It's a natural human functioning. The Sajmarg meditation particularly, there's the transmission and cleaning that go with it. But it's important that, the understanding about meditation is the object of what you meditate on. You could meditate on your favorite sports team. You could meditate on your girlfriend. You could meditate on your vacation that you're about to take. It's like you're sitting in your car and your mind goes into a meditative state. And you could be thinking about any number of things. But the Sajmarg system, you're meditating on the abstract idea, the supposition. You're supposing there's divine light in your heart. You're having this idea that there's divine light in your heart, light that you cannot see, light without luminosity. You're not looking for light. You're not seeing light with your eyes. You're supposing there's divine light, light that comes from a divine place in your heart. And this divine light is what Babaji, the second master of the Sajmarg system, decided, or was advised from the divine beings that helped him create this system of meditation, that it was the closest idea that human beings could get towards meditating on an abstract idea of God. A God that isn't a king, a God that isn't in a physical body, a God that has no characteristics or qualities, a God that is just the essence of love, right? So in love, it has so many connotations. If you say to people, meditate on love, in the Persian language, I think there's something like 40 words, different words for love, right? And so there's, love with, in terms of a marital situation, there's love in terms of your love for your children, there's love for your parents, there's love for your job and career. Love is a multifaceted, because there's God in all these things, and it is the essence of God that you interact with all these other things, right? And so in the Sajmarg system, you meditate on the abstract idea. You suppose that you have a supposition that there's divine light in your heart. And you're supposed to stay with that and keep with that, but you're not always supposed to stay thoughtless. But many thoughts that you might have are about your material life, and you're not supposed to attend to those. But sometimes in the meditation, there's a gush of information that flows through you. there's information that is, coming from the source, coming from your, internalizing your existence. And that's what happened to me. And there are two things, the Candace Owens thing and what I'm about to describe in terms of the meditative practice. And I'm going to put this voiceover also at the end of the video that I put up tomorrow on my regular channel, even though it really has nothing to do with the video. It's important that these things go together, and then eventually this will all be in the Journey series as well. So the idea that came to me is that we are doing something different here, because I'm not doing these meditations live, like I'm not acting as a preceptor. I'm just participating as an abhyasi, as a person who's also meditating. And we're all meditating together at different times in different places in terms of time zones. And some of the people are, I think, in Europe that might do this practice. At least, some people are living in different countries. And then there's the 4 time zones in America. And also people have to meditate when they meditate. And because there's no preceptor, there's no one to say, please begin meditation, and that's all at the end of meditation. And it's important to know that the time limit of the meditation is not up to the preceptor. It's not up to even the master of the system to decide when to start and when to stop. It happens on its own, right? The sittings are whatever time they are. Sometimes a group meditation could be like 35 minutes, and it could be an hour and 20 minutes, right? It's whatever length of time it takes. And I don't know if the meditations are going to be different. They shouldn't be. Like, they should all be the same length of time. The meditations that we all experience, if it's a group meditation, I believe it should be the same length of time, but maybe it isn't. Maybe it's for each specific person. I'm not sure. Because we're doing something new. We're sort of in uncharted ground because there's no preceptor giving these sittings. They're coming from the divine source. And we're supposed to, figure it out for ourselves. And how are you guys going to do that when really I don't know how well you've understood my explanation, and I haven't explained everything, and there's lots of things I don't know and can't explain. So, there's there's a lot here that I need to sort of address with you. So the first part is the group meditations go where there is cleaning, especially if there's a gathering. So if there's 6 sittings, the first 2 will be very heavy cleaning. And you might feel restlessness in the beginning. You might feel some transmission in the beginning. And I don't know how sensitive each of you are to the transmission. And some days it's harder to feel the transmission. So I want to give some tips to how to better go about, approaching these gatherings. And I think I've done some of that in the past. And then I'm going to put this whole audio in a separate video, which will have to do with, I'll just remake this video with I'll just rename it and put it up on the channel after the gathering, and then, it'll be part of the things to know about the Gratefullness meditation. And so the sittings will start off as a cleaning, and then there'll be a transmission, and then you'll just kind of feel that the sitting's over. But sometimes it isn't. Sometimes there'll be a second wave of transmission. So it's really hard to really navigate. And it's not like it's, well, here's an example. So the first gathering I went to, I was trying to remember because I went to 2 gatherings in my first year. And one was up in a cabin, but I think that one in the cabin might not necessarily have been, I thought it was at Lology's birthday, but it wasn't. Because the first gathering I was at, the main preceptors were out of town. And there was an old sort of hippie lady. She didn't look like a hippie lady, but she was from the hippie generation. Older, she was probably, 10 or 15, 20 years older than I was. I was by far the youngest person there. And there were 2 preceptors there, my preceptor, and this guy preceptor who was married to a preceptor, but she chose not to come. And I was too new to the practice, and I didn't know these people. And so there's a dynamic there that I didn't understand. And so this guy was giving a sitting, and he was just made a preceptor. And we were in the middle of satsang, and you could really feel the transmission flowing. It was, it was Lology's birthday. It was the same gathering as we're experiencing here. And the energy was really flowing. And all of a sudden he said, that's all. And he said it in a slight way. And he got up and he was gone. He just bolted, which I knew Like, I'm new to this thing, right? I started in August, so, I have about 4 or 5 months into this thing. I've read a lot of the books, but this was my first real, first one of these bandaras, these gatherings for one of the master's birthdays. And he just fucking jets, right? And my preceptor, the guy that started me, goes, Fred, he was like, he's a little like Jewish guy. He was like a little bit, he was a kind of an odd person. And he was a hippie too, like one of these hippies. And he's like, it's not over. Everyone keep their eyes closed and meditate, right? And we meditated for another 15 minutes, and the transmission was flowing. And then you could feel it dissipate, right? And so what I later found out was this guy, he was really into Saj Marg. And he was traveling. He had bought one of the apartments. They had these Gardens of Hearts apartments in India. And he was traveling there all the time. He was really into it. And his wife wasn't. His wife had heard about it from my ex, who I hadn't met yet. But she started with her, and she wasn't, she was clearly not into it. I went and got sitting from her, and we had a talk, and I kind of realized that, she was kind of almost competing for her husband's time, because he was doing a lot of preceptor work, and he was really into the system. He eventually donated a basement. He had a computer business, and he bought a building and donated the basement for a little meditation center. But he eventually quit, and his wife kept going. It was the weirdest thing. Like, I saw his wife in India after he had quit. But he was, kind of under time pressure to leave. And so he just stopped the sitting when he thought he had to go. His wife was waiting for him, and he just got up and jetted. And, there was obviously some sitting left, right? And so understanding when the sitting ends, the preceptors sometimes get it wrong. They don't, sometimes the transmission trails off and they think it's over, and then there's more transmission to go. It's an odd thing, because it's coming through them, but they can't decide the amount of time. So figuring this out and being sensitive to it is, a gift and an art form. And so when you meditate on your own, you do the cleaning at night, a half-hour cleaning of all the day's impressions. And there is like a period where you feel restless or you feel the cleaning. And then about 20 minutes in, you'll feel some relief. And you go, I think this cleaning's over, right? And, I know Daji has come in and he's sort of clouded and muddied this thing up by telling people, they could just do the cleaning for 5 minutes. And, of course you can do cleaning for any time limit you want. But the prescription from the master that knew the most, which was Babaji, was a half hour. And I found that, sometimes I do the cleaning for less time. And sometimes now I don't have as much time as I used to, but certainly in my first years, I did the cleaning for a half hour, and I would find that last couple of minutes was just really great. Like, just like with the 9 p.m. prayer, the last few minutes of 9 p.m. prayer are the best. And then the meditation that we do on a daily basis is an hour. And you could, do it for less time. But I could tell you there's so many times when I was, especially my first couple of years, because that's when I was, most, disciplined in my practice. And then when I had kids and things like that, it was, it wasn't as easy to get the time, and, I was being interrupted and shit like that. So that, was difficult. But, when I would do the morning meditation, sometimes it was like hell. I was just restless. I didn't feel anything. I was like, and 1 minute would seem like an hour. And I'd want to stop, and I wouldn't. And then at the last minute, it was just bliss. Like, it would be 59 minutes of just pure, like, feeling like shit. And then the last minute would be bliss. And so what I learned was that, the sittings are, there's a reason why they say to meditate an hour. Like, there's sometimes that last minute is the most important minute. In fact, I think every time the last minute is the best minute. It's when you receive whatever you're going to receive. It's like we're waiting for the great pumpkin and Charlie Brown, except this is something real, right? It's God eventually comes to you, but on his timetable, not on yours, right? The other thing is, I did 10 minutes of cleaning before the sitting. And that's really helpful. Like, you learn to do the cleaning. It's described on the Gratefullness meditation channel, and so in various places. There's this playlist about how to do the practice, and a video, I think, that I described the cleaning specifically. I think a few videos, but at least one specifically. And it's also in various books and things, and tells you how to do the cleaning. And use that same cleaning, and oftentimes when you're upset and you're going through something, you can do that cleaning, and it'll be really helpful, right? In terms of just, you don't have to wait till the end of the day, you don't have to wait or whatever. And if you do cleaning, 5 minutes of cleaning, 10 minutes of cleaning right before the group meditation, you'll be more sensitive to the transmission. It helps to get into the sitting. I know Master Chargy, before he would give group meditation, he'd be by himself for an hour, and he would basically contemplate the sitting. He would try to understand what the sitting was, and he was it was passing through him, and he was also doing work. He was there's techniques that you use and things that he had to he just had to sort of prepare for this, like an athlete preparing to go do battle, to play sports or whatever. But this is something of a collaborative, harmonious type situation. But it's the same thing, preparing for what you're about to do. And there's a moment, you're going to have a moment, you're about to have a moment, like your moment when you're, could be a big event in your life, getting married, having a kid, any number of things, playing a sport of a high level, championship thing. And you're going to have your moment, and this is a spiritual moment, and you're preparing for it. And you can have intentions, like setting intentions for the gathering ahead of time, becoming more sensitive, feeling the energy better, really absorbing. Sometimes when you're having the sitting, I used to have the thought that I was absorbing as much transmission as I could, like I was expanding my capacity to absorb the transmission. Because, we all have to get more and more capacity, and expand my capacity to undergo cleaning, because a cleaning can be very intense, right? And so a few things with this are, when Babaji was going through his spiritual journey, a spiritual yatra, he would figure out what the next step was, what was the next spiritual point, and the condition, the spiritual condition. Again, this is all abstract, and it's you're doing this internally. And he would prepare himself for whatever he was about to experience. So he would prepare himself, adjust himself so that he could better participate. And, there wouldn't be any resistance. There wouldn't be any pushback. There wouldn't be any, there's things on your spiritual journey. There's spiritual points and conditions that are so blissful, you don't want to leave. You feel so great, like you just want to stay there forever. But there's something beyond that, right? That's not the goal. That's not the final, your final destination, which is to merge back into the source. So you have to, push yourself further, even though you're in such a, you feel this wonderful spiritual condition, and you just want to, bask in it forever. Like you just feel great all the time. You're happy, and you're totally blissed out. It's almost like it's better than any drug you could ever take, because it's a real spiritual condition. But you have to move forward. And so these are things that people have to be aware of, preparing themselves, adjusting themselves, using their ability to be more sensitive to what's going on, and praying to God to make them more sensitive. There's an exercise they do in the 7 sittings in 7 days where, you become more sensitive, right? The other thing is, there's a time where Babaji really wanted to move some devoted abhyasi, a number of spiritual points, right? And he was going to move him 7 points, but he moved him 4. And his spiritual master, and who was already passed away, who had been dead for a number of years, was intercommuning with him all the time. And he said, "Stop! You're going to kill this guy, right? He can't take this much spiritual evolution at once." And Babaji stopped, and Babaji said, it was when he was kind of new at this. I mean, he was learning to be a spiritual master. And he said the guy reported that he had headaches for 4 months, and he was, but he said the guy was so he knew it was great for him spiritually. And he said, even with the headaches, I find some spiritual bliss in them, right? But so these are some of the things that are there, the stories. I mean, if you can get your hands on some of these books and read them, there's information about all this stuff that's there, that's talked about, and things that some of the stuff that I'm talking about now. I mean, all of this stuff I'm talking about now, I've learned through both experience and then also reading the literature and understanding these things, right? But you know, it's your internal world, and it's abstract, and it's, you know, you have an infinite world inside of you. You know, you have, God is infinite, and there's divinity within you, so there's infinity within you, right? And so the spiritual journey is, I mean, there's like, this is why you need a good spiritual guide, and as people, you know, beings, disembodied souls, and like a spiritual master to help you, guide you on this path through infinity, right? You know, this path through infinity. But in all that stuff, there's things that you can do to better understand what's going on and to develop, you know, some sensitivity and know what you're doing. So for those people who are doing the group meditation, these are the things that you need to work on, like, you know, really understanding when the meditation's over, when the transmission ends. And as you do this for a while, you'll start to be able to do that. And it's, you know, and then it'll make more sense, and, you know, and you'll, it'll be more, I don't know, not only just beneficial, but more like it's just not something, it's this thing actually working or whatever's going on. All right, so that's what I wanted to say. I'm going to add more to this tomorrow after the morning meditation. I'm going to put out a video here. You know, you guys know what I do here. But tomorrow morning I'll do the meditation, and I'll have some more reflections on that. But I just want to add this stuff here.